Hi there, I'm Vincent Bos, and I'm a life coach, relationship coach, and breakup coach. You can change the language of this podcast in the YouTube video settings. And in today's podcast, we're going to be discussing dumper thoughts about you. I provide audio coaching for breakup recovery, trying to get an ex back, attracting someone new, and life coaching. Visit www.dateme.tips for more details. Please check your spam and junk folders if you are expecting an email from me. Subscribe to my weekly support emails. The link is in the description. So now let's get back into today's podcast, and today we are discussing dumper thoughts about you. So if you have been dumped and want to try to get your ex back, you want to know their thoughts about you. In today's podcast, we will be focusing on the breakup itself, and I'll be discussing 3 possibilities of how your ex thinks about you. Let me know in the comments if this podcast helps, and I will continue the series with a part 2, moving through the dumper experience. So let's get straight into this, and point number 1 is built on strong foundations. Now let me know in the comments if you believe that your relationship was built on strong foundations. Let me know in the comments, and let's see what the community thinks. And as I've just said, point number 1 of today's podcast is built on strong foundations, and we're connecting this to the thoughts that your dumper has about you, by considering that your relationship with your now ex was built on those sturdy, strong foundations. Now, I would suggest that most of you would fall into this category. So, if you are wondering about what your ex thought and the experience they went through, breakup and post-breakup, this is where a lot of you will be within this section, although not all of you. So please keep listening through, and we will be getting into some unique specific situations as well. But for the majority of you, you and your now ex-dumper met and got into a relationship by getting to know each other first. Of course, it would have gone at various speeds, but you would have got to know each other in a way where the relationship felt natural as it developed. Both of you would have entered this situation feeling ready to find a new relationship. You would have felt ready and able to have a connection that you believed was going to last forevermore, and so did your ex-dumper. And that's really, really important when we're focusing on about your ex's thoughts, that if you built your relationship on strong foundations, they, just as you, would have believed that this relationship was going to be forevermore. There was no thinking of themselves, right, I'm just going to end this relationship not long after it begins, or I'm going to end it 5 years down the line. Or this is not in their thoughts. Their thoughts are, I want to see where this goes, and as it starts to develop, romantic emotional attraction grows in both of you and your now ex's mind. And when you hit the necessary high point, this is when you both wanted to get into an official relationship. Maybe this is when you became quote-unquote Facebook official. Maybe this was when you just said to one another, look, we're going off the dating apps. This is something we're really going to focus on now. This is just between me and you. We don't want anybody else involved. This is when you really decided that this relationship was something that was meaningful. Maybe this is when you told your friends and family that you had a girlfriend or a boyfriend. This is the situation where we see the strong foundations are in place and the relationship is building at a pace which of course will vary, but is still in the correct order of things. Meaning you are not jumping the gun. Meaning this relationship is moving in a steady pace, whatever that pace seems to be. Now, when you and your now ex felt about a high level of romantic emotional attraction, as I've already said, you both viewed this as a forever relationship. And this is how you hoped it would be forever. Now, unfortunately, for various potential reasons, over the course of time, your ex-dumper started to lose romantic emotional attraction. And when this hit a necessary low point, this is when they actioned for breakup. Now, as for why they ended the relationship, well, it could have been various reasons why that attraction was lost. It could have happened somewhat suddenly. Maybe, for instance, you cheated on your partner, they find out, they instantly lose that attraction, they end the relationship. Or perhaps this was something which happened slowly but surely over time due to the way that you were no longer seeing things in the same way. Of course, you're going to be individuals, but if you are not moving forward in a similar direction, that unfortunately is going to feel a grind, probably for both of you, not just your now ex. There could, of course, be an almost unlimited amount of possibilities as for why, sadly, your now ex started to lose attraction. But when it hit that low point, they actioned for breakup. Now, this is where you're going to be thinking, well, what does my ex-dumper think? Okay, and this is where we are focusing today's podcast. On each of today's points, we're looking about the circumstances of how your relationship evolved, where it began and how it got to where it did. And in point number 1, it was built on strong foundations. Now, this means that you actually stand a good opportunity of one day reconnecting with your ex, because your relationship was authentic. It was built in the right way. There were foundations and bricks laid on top of them in a sense where there is always a chance that a rebuild could take place. There are roots in your relationship. There is something which is meaningful, and therefore there is always a chance that this could resprout in the future. Now, this will obviously depend on your behavior post-breakup and your ex's behavior post-breakup and the journeys that you go on, but fundamentally there is an opportunity, and I would say a good opportunity, for you to one day reconnect, because your relationship was meaningful, it was true, it was real, and there is therefore always the chance that one day this could spark into life again. So now let's get into point number 2 and the second point of today's podcast. Please give this video a like and let me know your thoughts in the comments. If you like my content, subscribe to the channel to keep updated. And point number 2 is rebound relationship. Now today we're speaking about your ex-dumper's thoughts about you, and we're focusing on the very early stage of the breakup itself. So we're considering what your ex's thoughts are at that time and a little beyond, so to speak. And if you and your now ex, unfortunately, were in a rebound relationship, maybe you knew this, maybe you didn't, then sadly, your chances of reconnecting are less. Now, it doesn't mean you can't get your ex back, it just means it's tougher. And the way we can look at this is considering whether or not you and your ex were really ready for a relationship when you first met. In point number 1, we were talking about those strong foundations put in place. In point number 2, instead, we're talking about something which happened very, very quickly. Now, although in point number 1, the pace of a relationship could vary, it would have happened in a way which was authentic, which was real, which was getting to know each other, and when it felt like it was appropriate, the next stage would take place. The next brick would be laid. Everything happened in order. A rebound relationship typically happens very, very quickly, and it happens very, very quickly on the back of one or both of you recently coming out of another relationship. So you need to ask yourself, were you yourself in a prior relationship within weeks or months before you met your most recent ex? And whether or not you were your ex in that situation? Because if either of you was in a prior relationship less than a year before you and your now ex got together, this is a red flag that you were in a rebound relationship. On top of that, as I've already said, your connection would have grew very, very quickly. The pace would have been almost ridiculous in how fast it went. Maybe at the time it felt fine, but you now look back and think, wait, I moved in with that person after 3 weeks of knowing them? You will start to understand that you could never have known them properly It's not like point number 1, where you were laying those foundations. Unfortunately, there were no foundations. You were trying to build a house with no foundations at all. What happens? Eventually, it's going to crumble, and it's going to crumble down pretty quick. The reason for this are the layers which were in your relationship and your connection were not built on anything. You didn't really know one another. You wanted to get as quickly and as far into a new connection as you could without putting in the groundwork. And unfortunately, by the time you did get to know one another, the likelihood is that you realize you're probably not that compatible, but it's actually hard to find a long-term compatible partner. Therefore, what we see is the relationship falls apart and it becomes a rebound relationship, a connection not long after a prior relationship, which goes very, very quickly and eventually, somewhat suddenly, ends as well. Now, if you or your former partner was in that position and therefore your connection was in essence a rebound relationship, sadly, your chances of reconnecting, as I've already said, are less than from point number 1, where it was built on strong foundations. And the reason is because there was not an authentic connection between you both. Maybe one of you felt that way about the other, but certainly not both of you, and possibly neither of you. Because as soon as you really did get to one another, you realize you weren't compatible. That isn't the strong foundations we're looking for. Remember, you were trying to go on the holidays or vacations. You were trying to live together. You were trying to get engaged. You were trying to do all of these things before you really knew the person, because you were going too quickly and quite possibly had not emotionally recovered from your prior relationship. You or your now ex may have been in that position. If that is the case, then your relationship together, as much as it seemed like it was very, very natural and real at the time, we have to recognize it didn't have those fundamentals we're looking for. Of course it was real, of course it did happen, but were those emotions and feelings really from a natural, genuine place? I'm not saying that either of you was trying to deliberately deceive the other, but what I am saying is when everything came together, when both of you actually understood one another, you recognized that sadly it wasn't working out, and therefore your relationship together probably didn't last all that long. That is another challenge of getting your ex back when you don't have a good length of time to create as many triggers as possible. If you were only together 5 months, you have a lot less triggers than a couple who were together for 5 years. That makes it more difficult to reconnect with your ex. And therefore, when we consider what your ex-dumper thinks of you post-breakup when it was a rebound relationship, well, they probably view you as an amazing experience that they shared, an amazing relationship that burned out quickly, but whether or not they will want to reconnect in the future, it's not impossible, but I would sadly suggest your chances are less because the authenticity was never really there. Now, if you would like advice and support about how to try and increase the chance of one day getting your ex back, then you may want to consider my audio coaching service, where me and you can speak one-on-one about your unique specific situation. This is the best and diamond level of support that I can provide. Go to my website www.dateme.tips for more information about how I can become your coach and your teammate via my audio coaching service. Talking about your feelings can also improve your mental health. It helps prevent the buildup of negative emotions, which can lead to stress, anxiety, depression, and even physical health issues. Speak your heart to free your mind. So now let's get into point number 3 and the final point of today's podcast. If you feel that this podcast has helped you, then please consider buying me a coffee. The link to do so is in the description. And point number 3 is unauthentic. So we've already spoke about strong foundations starting a relationship, and then we've moved into speaking about rebound relationships, which in a sense are not authentic, but not in a negative and cruel and manipulative way, just because neither person truly knew the other. There was nothing kind of bad going on, but unfortunately the authenticity couldn't be there because of the speed and the emotional circumstances. Whereas point number 3 when we are speaking about unauthentic relationships in this regard, this sadly is about manipulation, it is about using people, and sadly, it can be very, very painful for those people involved. And these are relationships which was based on circumstances. Probably the most classic of these circumstances would be money. So if you now come to the conclusion that your ex-dumper was only with you for money, well, not only is that very hard for you to take and very painful, but the chances of you reconnecting are very, very slim. If a relationship has ended and you believe it was connected to money or other circumstances, presumably you have realized this and cut off the supply. You've realized this and thought, wait a minute, they're only with me for my money or whatever it may be. I don't want that to be the main focus of our relationship. I'm not going to do that anymore. And therefore, they have dumped you. So you can see how sadly this would mean your chances of reconnecting are very, very slim, because the only way to do so would be to restart that supply, and you shouldn't be doing that, okay? That is where we need to really underline the point. Yes, it might be painful right now, but it's a good thing you are not with someone who is using you. If you believe you were being used, maybe your friends and family saw it a mile off, but you never saw it at the time. Maybe they ended the relationship for whatever reason before you actually recognized what they were doing. Maybe they ended it due to you no longer doing what they wished. As I've described, it could be slight variance, but often it is connected to money. Well, I would suggest you've had a lucky escape, because any time you are not with this person is time you can rebuild yourself, your confidence, your self-esteem, become a version 2.0 of yourself, and find someone even better, which wouldn't be very hard, because anybody who is authentic is going to be better than someone who is using you. You deserve someone who loves you for you, not because they love your money or for what other reason they were trying to use you. So if you believe that you were in a relationship which was unauthentic, which didn't have any foundations other than them wanting to take from you, then on one hand we might say, sadly, your chances of reconnecting are slim, but on the other hand I would say it's not sad at all, because you've had a lucky escape, you deserve better, and you will find better.